Welcome to the first episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. On this podcast, we explore the realities of business and the many hats we have to wear. I'll be speaking to some fantastic business owners about their journey to where they are today in the hope that they inspire you to get through the tough times so you get to relish the rewards having your own business can bring. Before we jump in, I'd love you to subscribe, rate and leave a review if you enjoy what you hear. Your support means the world to us and helps Many Hats of Business, the podcast, reach even more curious minds like yours. You'll also be the first to hear when a new episode drops. Alright, let's get started. Get ready to be entertained, informed and inspired. This is Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Hi and welcome to the first episode of the Many Hats of Business podcast. Today I'm here with Nikki Stock, who has an amazing story and she's going to share it with us today. And I've known Nikki for a while now, and I just think she's one of the most heart-led business owners out there, and I just thought it was really important that you guys met her to hear just how she does things, because I think there's a lot that we can learn from her. So if you want to tell the listeners all about yourself, Nikki, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am absolutely blown away to be your first podcast guest. That's a real honour, and I'm delighted to be here. So I'll just do a little bit of the background. I think that's probably the best way to start, and let me know how I've ended up where I am. So I'm Nikki. I live in Cambridge, and I also live in Spain. So I have a little bolt hole in the hills, and I'll come to why I have that shortly. But I'm a big believer in having a balanced life, and it wasn't always the case. So after many years, or maybe 10 years in corporate, I worked for American Express, I worked for Bupa, sort of big blue chip companies. I met my partner at the time, and I felt that I needed to do something a bit different. And we lived together. We bought a house in Cambridgeshire. It was the idyllic countryside sort of environment, and I wanted to have a baby, so I had my baby. And at that point I thought, I can't go back to work, I can't go back into corporate, it just wasn't me. And it was a very patriarchal company, American Express. I remember going for my return to work interview with my 6-month-old sitting on my lap, breastfeeding, and the guy saying to me, well, we're going to put you in charge of Europe because you can go to, I live near Stansted Airport, so it was like, you can easily get to Stansted in the morning and get to Hamburg or whatever. And I was sort of dangling the baby in front of him going, and what are we going to do with this one?
Are we taking this one with us?
Are we taking this one with us? They said, well, what about your husband? I'm like, it's one of those things where they just assume that I would be able to, and I suppose some people could, but I didn't love the job enough to want to not be there and have childcare at 5:30 in the morning. You're not going to get it.
And that's like a really good way of looking at it as well, isn't it? Did you love the job enough to make that level of sacrifice? And it's so common for women that they don't.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of women are coming, when they reach a certain point in their life where either when they're having children or when they've had children and the kids are off their hands, and they go, actually, no, I don't want to be in this 9 to 5. I want to have control over my life. I want to have more balance. I want more, whatever it is, more of whatever brings them joy. So I kind of decided I wasn't going to go back to work. And my partner at the time was working for a big FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods business, supplying the major multiples in the UK. And for those listeners that don't know who the major mults are, that's people like Tesco's and Sainsbury's and Boots and any high street sort of store. And one of their clients was a company called Playtex Products, not the bra people. Everyone thinks it's the bra people, not the bra people. It was the homewares company, and they had a number of brands that they wanted to bring over into the UK. And one of them happened to be Banana Boat Sun Care. And my lovely partner at the time said, oh, Nikki's not very busy at the moment. No, she only had 2 children under the age of 4, but that's okay. She could do that. And he knew I was a bit...
Yeah, he's probably well and truly right. I've known you long enough to know.
But it's when they come back and they say, oh, we've been talking, I think I've got you a job. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it back
for a job.
silly looking right now, but okay. Anyway, I went and had a chat with them, and they basically said, take the brand and see what you can do with it. So at the time, the brand was just on the south coast, and it was turning over about 75,000 a year. And I just had a really lucky break. I managed to get into Tesco's to the brand new sun care buyer, convinced him to take practically every single SKU we did. And that summer, walked into Tesco's, and the seasonal aisle, the one when you just walk through the left-hand side, floor to ceiling, banana boat sun care.
What did it feel like? I mean,
it's just incredible because we had 2 breaks that year. We were in Boots. We got into Boots with aloe vera gel, which is still in there now. If you go into Boots now, you will still see the big green banana boat aloe vera gel. And we got into Tesco's, and it was like, it took I can't even remember what the figure was, but to take it from 75,000 to hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And then what happened was the company that I was working with, we were brokering through, they were failing with the rest of their business, and they went into administration. And we got a call on the Friday night from America saying, do you want to run Banana Boat in the UK? Just the 2 of you. And we went, okay, we'll do that. Why not?
It was on a Friday, so I'll think about it and let me know Monday.
Yeah, that's and literally by the following Friday, we'd got offices set up half an hour away from our house. We were going to take Colin's PA with us, so we literally set up, and then we moved all the stock from the warehouse before the receivers came in, because obviously they would have taken it even though it was our stock. And we had that brand for best part of, I think it was 7 or 9 years, can't remember now. So we took it from 75,000 to just under 7 million turnover.
Nice.
Which was lovely. And it was basically our business. It was our baby. We used to report into the US, but everything we did in the UK was down to us. It was a lovely business. It was very lucrative. So I can actually say, when we talk about this online space, I have been a multi-7-figure business owner.
Yeah.
But that was turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's big differences we know between turnover and profit.
Oh, it's a regularly talked about conversation in our world, isn't it? Of
what turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. But I was, a couple of years, I did pull out a couple of really good 6-figure salaries, so that was great. And then Banana Boat got sold from under us. So it got sold to another big company, Energizer Wilkinson Sword. And they didn't need us. They had their own salespeople. They thought they could do it better. And we were left literally with our whole world blown apart. We had no business because we'd only ever had one business. So the first thing I was just going to say, so I take it that was the leading point onto why you then think and want to be working for myself properly now. Because as much as you'd had like the full control on the day-to-day, it got ripped away from you, didn't it? Yeah, I mean, we were working for ourselves. It was all, we were like brokers. So we were totally working for ourselves, but we just had the one client.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, having just the one client, or, being a little bit fragile, I guess. We never thought the situation was as precarious as it turned out to be.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, that all went away. We had got a nice sum of money from leaving. And then at the time, I was also consulting with other things. I was doing little dibbling things in sort of baby care. I was helping brands come into the UK. So I helped to launch 2 or 3 brands into the UK, but they were just a little side gig, and they weren't.
Conversations we've had in the past, and I think it's useful for us to tell people those consulting gigs, when people they were coming to you, weren't they? They were finding through work you'd done through your network, and I think it's worth telling people that, because when people are starting out, they're not quite sure where they're going to get the work from. And I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on using social media, for example, for everything, and less emphasis on the stuff where you're really building the proper connections.
Yeah, I mean, I think your network, whether it's actually going, I think networking depends on what sort of industry you're in and what you're trying to achieve. So certainly in the FMCG industry, it's very incestuous. And you tend to network. You know, I remember back in the day, it was all built around the Grocer magazine. And like every Saturday, you'd get the Grocer through the door and you'd look at who the movers and shakers were and who was doing what in what sector. And it's probably moved on a bit like that. And I think it's possibly more LinkedIn and lots of sort of governing bodies and industry sort of standard things. But for newer, smaller businesses, and I'll come on to it in a minute because I did go into networking big time, there is a lot to be said for doing stuff away from the online space as well.
Not to say you can't meet people online. You know, I've met some fantastic people who I consider friends that I've only met online, or I've gone to meet them in real life, and you're like, oh wow, like this is you in real life, and you know, I already feel like I know you, which is nice.
Yeah, I would agree. So basically, it's quite a story here to tell. So I'll speed up a bit. So there we were. We didn't really have a clue what we were going to do, and Colin, my partner, was going out very furtively and very secretly and shutting the door and having conversations, and me thinking, my God, he's having an affair. Oh, no. And then I'm thinking, no, he loves me, but he's having an affair because he wasn't telling me what he was doing. And then one day he dropped the kids off at school, came back, goes, come on then, off we go. And I thought, oh, where are we going? I said, oh, we're going out for lunch. He went, no, not exactly. And drove me to Rushden in Northamptonshire and presented me, went onto the industrial estate and then pulled our car up outside this dilapidated building and kind of went, ta-da. And I was looking at it going,
let's just find lunch.
Yeah, and he basically bought a pet food business out of administration. So it wasn't really a pet food as in manufacturing. It was a wholesaler, and we wholesaled to garden centres and pet shops and various country stores around that sort of area. And I was sort of looking at him as if he was completely mental. And I said, "What? Why are we doing this? Why? What? We didn't even have a dog. We had a couple of cats. That was about as good as it got. What did we know about horses and pigeons and all sorts of stuff like that?" And he presented me with a Mintel report on the pet food industry at the time. And he said, we've done babies because we'd done, as part of Playtex, we'd also had some infant care products. He said, so we've done birth. He said, we don't want to do death in old people because that's a really big business. He said, so let's look at things. People are going to have children, people are going to die, and people love their pets. So we're going to go with pets.
Yeah, he had a good point, to be fair.
You know what? You got a point. What's the plan? And he said, right, we're going to turn it all around. We're going to move away from just solely wholesaling. We're going to have a retail bit, and you're going to just do all the marketing for it. I went, oh, okay. Didn't know that. I didn't really want to do all the marketing for it. It really wasn't my thing. But we always worked as a team. We for years we worked as a team, and it worked really, really well. So that's what we decided to do. And that was in 2010. So we sat down, did our numbers, wrote a plan, and we decided that within 5 years we would have got the model sorted and we would have 4 or 5 similar businesses all around East Anglia. That's what we were going to do. And 9 months into the whole thing, Colin wasn't feeling very well. And he was in hospital having some surgery for a rotator cuff that he'd hurt skiing. And I noticed a lump on his neck after surgery. And I said to him, oh, you've got a lump on your neck. And he said, oh, have I? Must have been where they were putting something in my shoulder. And I thought, no, that's too high. That's too high. Anyway, after a few weeks of tests and a really, really horrendous Christmas because we were waiting for the results, in January 2011, he was diagnosed with an incurable cancer. So he was diagnosed with a blood cancer called mantle cell lymphoma. And they basically said it's incurable but treatable, which doesn't really give you a lot of hope. No. And of course, you go on to Dr. Google and then you wish you hadn't, because you know that, there's only 5,000 cases back in the day, there was only 5,000 cases in the world at any one time, and it was pretty bleak. So we then had my year of hell, because he was very, very ill from the get-go. I mean, as soon as they diagnosed it, they wanted him in hospital straight away. And he was going in for 4 or 5 days at a time and having continuous chemotherapy for 4 or 5 days. It was brutal, absolutely brutal.
So difficult to go through all of that.
Yeah. So that was in the January. And then in the February, my mum got diagnosed with womb cancer. And in the March, my dad went mad with trauma onset psychosis. So if you can imagine, there's me by April. I had a day in April when I did 3 hospitals in 3 counties in one day, because I had to drop him off in Addenbrooke's, and then I had to go to Essex and pick my mum up and then take her to Ipswich, to the cancer centre in Ipswich, and then take her home and then pick my dad up and take him for his psychosis assessment in Broomfield Hospital, then take him home, then have a cup of tea, then drive back up to Cambridge, pick Colin up, bring him home, put him to bed. And that was my, and run the pet food business at the same time. So that was my life for about 18 months. And
people, I think, until you've been through anything like that, which, let's face it, we hope no one ever else does, you can't comprehend how you can possibly cope with that. And to say that you did that for 18 months is astounding. But it did take its toll on you, didn't it?
And it did, yeah. And the toll it took was in the December, we went on what was to be our last family skiing holiday. And I was really struggling to breathe, and I'm a good skier. We've been skiing I've been skiing since I was 25, so it's a long time. I'm a good skier, and I can do no exercise and still get on the slopes and ski. I'm fine. It might not be quite
not
fun
to do that.
Yeah. And it completely, listeners, do your exercise before you go skiing, because you won't.
You'll get a better holiday.
Yeah, I would have a much better holiday. But I was away, and our friends sort of surprised us, and one of our friends said, "You're okay," and he just kept saying, "Nikki's not right. Nikki's not right. She's just not right." And my hair had started falling out, and I've got a picture of that Christmas, and I looked about 90. I was really not good. And in the February, so we'd been back a few weeks, and unfortunately, Colin had relapsed, so he'd started his chemotherapy again. And I dropped him off one morning at Addenbrooke's Hospital, and one of the nurses looked at me. And it wasn't Addenbrooke's, it was the private hospital. But one of the nurses looked at me and she said, "You okay, Nikki?" And I went, "Oh, really tired." And she said, "No, you're not just really tired. Your lips are a bit blue. I think you need to go and see your GP." So I went to see my GP. Fortunately, it wasn't my GP, because I'd seen her a couple of weeks previously, and she was putting it down to carer's fatigue. She just said, "You're exhausted." I saw a locum, and the locum was very, very thorough. Put me on an ECG machine, did all sorts of stuff. I walked back into his office after I'd been having my ECG, and he was phoning an ambulance. And he was going, "Yeah, we need an ambulance, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Oh, you're really busy. I'll come back."
The ambulance is for you.
And he was like, no, you're going. I'm not going. I can't possibly go there. Colin's in hospital. And he said, "I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to go, like now." And my oxygen levels were really low. Anyway, I was admitted to Hinchinbrook Hospital. And after a couple of days, I was on the respiratory ward. But after a couple of days, my lungs were just not working. And I ended up being rushed into intensive care and sedated, and then taken to Papworth Hospital in Cambridge, which is the leading heart-lung hospital, and put on something called ECMO, which is a complete lung bypass. And it's what they put all the COVID patients on.
Okay.
When the COVID patients were, the really poorly COVID patients, and you saw those people lying prone, face down.
Yeah.
I was on ECMO, so it completely bypassed my lungs, because I had pneumonia and multiple other infections, and I was basically dying.
Yeah.
And so I was in a coma for 2 weeks. So you can imagine how horrendous that was, because my kids have got their mum in a coma, dying. They've got their dad having chemotherapy, also probably dying. And they were 14 and 16 at the time. And Auntie Pauline, I think on the Friday, Colin just broke down and phoned his sister, and he said, "It's all going horribly wrong and we can't cope." So Auntie Pauline had to move into my house and become me for as long as it was going to be necessary. She just came in and became me. And that, I'll talk about that a bit later on and what that's actually prompted to happen. Anyway, I was in a coma for 2 weeks. Kids came and said goodbye to me twice. I died twice. And after 2 weeks, the consultant said to Colin, "Well, we might as well just lift the sedation and see what we've got left.
Wow.
And by that, he meant, what sort of brain damage would there be? Would she be able to walk, talk? They had no idea because I'd been starved of oxygen.
It's actually making me really tearful to think, like, I'm talking to you, right? You're quite tearful.
I think, I know, when I tell the story, people do get very tearful and very upset. And I didn't tell the story for a number of years because it was, you know, it's my story and it's my kid's story and it is horrific. And even my son, who's 26 now, can remember nothing of that time. It's completely blocked it out of his memory. It's just so traumatic. But anyway, they lifted the sedation. He came in, he's all sobbing and, oh my God. And he said, oh, you know, oh my God, Pops. He used to call me Pops, 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 Pops. I looked at him and I went, and I'm going to excuse I won't say the word, but I said, what the F are you doing here? You should be having your chemotherapy. And he just looked at the consultant and he went, she's okay. She's fine. I mean, I wasn't. I mean, that was about as lucid I got. I mean, I was completely mental for weeks and, you know, I couldn't remember stuff. And when I came out of hospital, I was in hospital for another 6 weeks. When I was kicked out.
Horrendous once you felt like, you know, you were conscious and you knew for starters, and you, I suppose, very quickly you started to think the stuff I should be doing, looking after everyone else, like you always do.
As you do as a woman. And like my phone, I mean, I think after 3 or 4 days out of the coma, I was going, where's my phone? And like, you're not having your phone. I need my phone. And I don't think I got my phone for about 2.5 weeks. And I was raging, you know. Oh, yeah. I wasn't actually lucid enough to use my phone if I'd have got my phone. Because I would, you know, people would come and visit me and I would tell them all sorts of mental stuff, you know, like they've been experimenting on me and they've been beating me up and they're really horrible. And yeah, and I said, my friend came to visit me and she's my neighbour and she'd also nursed me. And I said to her, I don't know how you can work for that hospital. She went, Patworth. I went, yeah. I said, I'm going to sue them. She said, what, for saving your life? I said, they were abusive. I said, they kept shouting at me and pinching me and went, she said, yeah. She said, we're pinching your fingers and your hand to see if you're responsive and you're going to wake up. And I was like, oh, okay. I won't sue them.
I'll let it go this time.
I'll let it go this time. And so that was that. And, you know, I came out of hospital weighing 5 stone, as you do when you've not eaten or drunk anything for quite some time. And 10 weeks later, Colin died.
God.
So, and we weren't married. So that's a whole another episode about not being married. So we weren't married. So that left me slightly financially exposed, or very financially exposed, if I'm honest. So he died on the Sunday and I was in the warehouse on the Monday telling the staff and saying, right, this is what we've got to do. You know, he's not here anymore. I'm in charge. You're going to need to help me now because I know nothing about ordering pigeon seed from Holland and all the other stuff that I needed to do. And we just got on with it. And I think when you're in that situation, you can't think about the horror of it, because if you thought about what actually happened, you wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. No.
It's amazing how resilient I always feel humans can be, like, when it all goes wrong, isn't it? You know, like, we all, like, people... And, you know, people do struggle. People's got anxiety, depression and things like that. And it's so much more common these days. But, so, like, you're living proof how strong you can be when you need to. And yes, given a choice, you wouldn't have had to deal with all of that. And yes, it did take its toll on you, but you've made it, you know.
Yeah, I think, you know, and it's like my story isn't any better or worse than anybody else's. Well, you know, each person's experience, it's their own individual horror at the time. And I look at other people and I think, oh my God, that poor, so obviously I have massive empathy for anybody that's going through anything, because I have, you know, and being an empath anyway, I think I can help everyone and I can't. But yeah, you do have this huge resilience. And I think this, your body and your brain puts you into a protection bubble and just goes, right, which she can't cope with all of this, what happened. So we're going to stop her from coping, and we're going to stop her from thinking about it. We're going to give her so much other stuff that she needs to do, that she'll just get on with it. And then the time will come when she can actually address it. And sometimes that,
long protracted time, 18 months of dealing with it, wasn't it? That wasn't a few weeks of shit. That was months and months of really, really,
really intense.
I know how did it then go with the pet food business? Did you, it's not something you do now, is it? So
no. So basically, I just thought, I hate it. Everyone knew I hate it. I had a blog on it, and it was, it was a swear word. It was Graham's Pet Foods. And I always used to say, and it was funny because all my friends said I could dine out on some of the stories, and I still do for years and years and years. So I had to take the funny part of it to keep me going. And then I was working 6 days a week for a year to turn it round, to get it to the turnover where it then would have a value to somebody. And I didn't know what that was going to be. But after about, I think he died in the June, and I think I did it for about a year, maybe 14 months. And in 14 months, I got it to turning over about, I think it's about 1.8, 1.9 million, with quite a nice net profit. And I just woke up one day and I looked at the figures and I thought, oh, I think somebody will buy this off me now.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want a lot for it. I just wanted enough to take a year off. That was my kind of,
well earned, to be honest, Nikki.
Yeah, it wasn't I wanted millions or anything like that. I just wanted a low 6-figure just to give me enough to pay some mortgage and stuff off and re-establish myself and maybe invest in a new business. So I phoned up one of my suppliers and I went, hi, Nikki here. I was just wondering if you wanted to buy my business. And he said, yes, I do. And I went, oh, okay. He said, how much do you want for it? I said, I have no idea. I said, give me a couple of days. Because I wasn't expecting him to say, yes, I wanted to buy your business. Anyway, sold it. It was fantastic. Sold it and I had a deferred consideration. And for those people that don't know what a deferred consideration is, it meant that I got a lump sum up front for my assets and goodwill. And then I had a payment for 3 years every quarter based on the sales turnover, because they couldn't pay me what I wanted for it up front. So that actually secured me an income for 3 years, which was really, really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Cool.
That comes nearly as big as mine.
I know, it's huge. So I've had a tickle. So so that was that. And then I thought, oh God, what am I going to do now? I can't do nothing because I've still got the family home. And I didn't want to sell the family home because I felt the children had enough upheaval in their lives without actually then ripping their one home away from under them.
Yeah.
So I bought a marketing franchise, which I did for a couple of years. I just thought a franchise might be a good idea. I realised it wasn't that great for me because it was still quite constricted. I bought the Women in Business franchise.
Okay.
So I brought the Women in Business Network, and that was fantastic. I loved that for the time I did it. In fact, I did it for 7 years. And what that gave me when we're talking about, people starting out in business, that gave me so many contacts and so much engagement with other women who were of a similar age or a similar mindset, either setting up their business or quite well established. So it was a real hive of information, and I had groups all over Cambridge and East Anglia, sort of Norfolk, Suffolk. Had about 120, 130 women in my groups monthly, and it was good because it gave me a purpose. It meant I got out every 2 or 3 times a week, and from that my mentoring started because I used to run education topics within the networking arena, and people started saying, oh, do you do coaching? And I thought, well, I'm not a coach because I haven't got any coaching qualifications, and I have a bit of thing about coaches. So I said, no, I'm not a coach. I said, but yeah, I can mentor you. I can give you some strategy. I can help you do whatever it is, you might want to achieve with your business. But my point from them was, I want them to be able to do it without burnout and without overwhelm and without all the other stuff that, I see happening regularly. So I started mentoring, and that's how that's evolved to where I am kind of now, which is the straight talking strategist. So people will come to me and they'll say, I don't know, I want to grow my business. I don't know where I'm going. And I literally sit down with them, and within about 45 minutes, an hour, we've worked out where they need to go and what they need to do. My human design is a projector. I should be a mentor. I should be a strategist. I should be a networker. So even though I've only just learned about that, I've naturally been doing what I was designed to do for years.
It's been quite a revelation for you when you found out that it's all there.
It was incredible. It was like, as soon as I did it, and I went, oh my God. And the person said, it's really weird that you're actually already doing what you were designed to do, because that doesn't always happen.
Okay.
So that was interesting. So I've become this sort of mentor and strategist, and I only work with them. I sort of work with a couple of VIPs full time. You know, they spend a lot of time with me, and then I do little pop-up sessions. I call them sounding board sessions, and they're really good.
Really valuable, I imagine, as well.
It's just a couple of hours, and they can say, oh, I'm thinking of launching a new product, or I'm designing, and I do a lot of reverse engineering with stuff. So that's what I've been doing. And then I was sort of looking to do a bit more, I don't know, what's the word I want? Some more connection type work, spending more time with people, and getting groups of people together. And I started looking at various online things and networks and masterminds and everything else. And it became very clear to me that there is, the online space is great. The online space is great because you and I would never have met.
Yeah.
You know, because we went into something and blah, 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 blah. But I think there's a lot of messaging out there that is causing many, many people stress, overwhelm, FOMO, massive FOMO.
Yeah.
And I was somebody whose group I was in, she was saying she feels that she's one of the people that's stuck in the middle. So not necessarily starting out in business, doesn't really want to be a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur. That's not where she is.
Yeah.
But there is nothing for her. There's nothing that's affordable for her. She'd love to go on a retreat.
Really interesting that you should say that as well, because also I think there's a lot of people pushing the 6-7 figure narrative, and I think it isn't their fault, but they can't actually comprehend, I don't think, the people that don't want that, because it is difficult, isn't it, to understand people that aren't in the same place as you. So when you've built a business that's around encouraging that growth and helping them, that's fantastic. It's very difficult for them to understand that some people don't want it because they might not be at that stage of life, or they've been through stuff you've been through, and you don't need that now because you just want to have the money that gives you a comfortable life and a lot of time, because at one point you didn't think you were going to have any time.
Exactly. And I think that you've nailed it there. You know, it's like, I've got a big birthday this year, and somebody said to me, what are you going to do for your birthday? And I went, I've had 12 years more life than I should have had.
Yeah.
So I don't need anything because I've had 12 years more life. You know, that's how it is. And the people that I've been talking to recently, it's like I had a sounding board session with a lady last week. And, you know, I said to her, how much do you want to bring into your business a year? How much do you want to put into the family pot?
Yeah.
That was my starting point. And she said, £5,000. That's 60 grand.
Yeah.
That's all she wants. That's all she needs. She doesn't need to kill herself. She doesn't have to be, but she would like to be going away on some of these other things, but she doesn't want to spend half of her monthly pot on a retreat.
Yeah. And also that would be the half of that money then isn't going into the family pot, so she'd have to work
exactly
to cover it.
But if I could offer her a lovely few days away for £500 with some like-minded people in a beautiful Airbnb on the coast, she'd love that. And it's been brewing in my head for a while that my thing is obviously work smart, not hard. I only work the hours, you know, I always have Fridays off. I spend my time between here and Spain. I'm very fluid with what I do. I've really gone deep into life by design. I'm now teaching life by design, which is obviously, well, that's not obviously because people don't know it. It's living your life with purpose and intention, and intentionally designing your life rather than living your life by default because you've got into that routine, and you're like, you're living on autopilot, and you're just doing the same thing. You're not creating
so
life,
isn't it? You know, like I was thinking, I do it, and because I've got young kids, particularly, everything's dictated to me at school holidays. I've got an ex-husband, my husband's got an ex-wife, so it's all about juggling the kids between us all. And you know, you are just to a point going along, aren't you? And at the minute, there's not that much I can change because I've not got control over it all. But for people when they're not in that situation, but you've been so long in that situation, you need someone like you perhaps to give them show them the way.
Well, we talk about work, play, health, and love. They're the 4 parts of life by design. And then we look at it like a petrol gauge, and we gauge where we are with it. And anyone can do it, even if you think you can't. You think, oh, I'm so busy with all these X's. But you sit down and you do your life by design, and then you make it. You make tweaks and you make adjustments so it works with you. And you do it with your business as well. You know, there's nothing to stop anybody having a really profitable business they love, but without overwhelming stress, so long as they design it correctly.
Yes.
So, so that's kind of where I am now. You know, I'm sort of doing my strategy and my mentoring with my clients. Rich Beyond Money is for women who, you know, appreciate the value of a balanced life. And that seems to have really resonated with lots and lots of people.
And at the time, boarding this is quite a new group for you, isn't it?
Yeah. This is a week old.
Wow. And I'm in the group, and I
are in the group, and then it's just beginning, you know, and there will be, you know, retreats and strategy days and mastermind days and just some lovely events and networking, but that are going to be accessible and affordable. Yeah. I want to bring people together that are, you know, in that space. And
it's an interesting business lesson as well for people, in the sense of, so you've had a feeling for a while that there should be these events that you'd like to go to, but you're not willing to pay a fortune for, because that would take out of your pot that, you know, you don't want to push to that level. And there's, you think sometimes, say, well, it can't just be me. And I think that's happens with a lot of things. And I think it's important that people delve into this and really follow their intuition on things. If they're feeling like something, you know, they can't be the only person thinking it. And I think it's really worth looking into. If you're feeling like that, go and do that. And you have, haven't you? And you've then taken the leap, because, you know, you are one of those people that does take the leap to then put stuff out there. And I think some people don't feel so confident to do that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a big risk, because, you know, my mentoring is a bit more expensive.
Yeah.
You know, because some people I'm working with at the moment, we are growing them into 6 and 7 figure business owners, but that's their want. It's not my. I can just help them, you know, and I'm happy to help.
That's what you want.
I'll help you do it. That's what you want. I'll help you do it. But that's not what, you know. If people say to me, "What are you selling?" Right now, it's a bit of a tricky one, because I'm selling you the opportunity to take back control of your life, and to,
it's a pretty powerful message to be selling, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and but also to have those connections and that community of people that are like-minded. They are the same as you, and, you know, they are happy. You know, it's like, I think there was a lady, I'll mention her name, Lisa Munger. She's a trainer, and she's doing a retreat in Bali and things like that. And I put something in the group the other day, and she said it's all about knowing what is enough and being happy with whatever your enough is. And we all, you know, I can't look into your bank account. I can't look into anyone else's bank account and say, you've got enough. Only you will know what that enough is. But if you know that your enough isn't going to be 10 million, 20 million, you're going to be in the hundreds of thousands, or low hundreds of thousands, that's fine. But don't feel that you have to then pretend that you're part of that gang.
Yeah.
There's lots of playgrounds you can play in on the online space. Find the playground that aligns with your values and your wants and your needs. Because if you don't, what will happen is, and I had this with somebody who did a sounding board session with me last week, she kept saying to me, I should be doing this. I should go there. I need to. And I was like, but you don't, do you? You don't need to do any of that if you don't want to. But because she was in that space, she felt she had to be there. And it was just going round and round in her head. And then you got that feeling of not being good enough.
Yeah.
Faking it till you make it and all that kind of stuff.
And the FOMO that you didn't go or you're not going or...
No, it's quite toxic. And it you know, we talked a minute ago about mental health, you know, and I can't remember what the statistics are, but I think it's like, you know, 1 in 2 new businesses fail within the year.
Yeah.
Because people aren't, you know, they're just not equipped to deal with it.
And they don't know. 5 years, you're basically set, you know.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable, isn't it? The thing is, but yet still people would feel a massive sense of failure that they didn't survive. But the statistics are there that you're not. Yeah, you're not one of the few failures. You're literally one of the common, you know, amount.
Yeah, and the biggest, you know, new businesses in the last since COVID have been women. Women, you know, the most new business, 60% of new business, something like that, has been started by women.
Yeah,
and that's because they are actually now deciding that they don't want to be in the corporate environment. They do want to take control of their lives. They know there's something more to being on the hamster wheel or whatever else it is. And like you and I know, being an entrepreneur is not easy. No, it's not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. And you have to have...
No, it's not the easy way out from a job, is it? It just brings different problems.
Yeah. And I think you have to have... I think you've either got it or you haven't. I don't think you can necessarily... When people say, well, you can teach this, I'm thinking, no, you can't really. You've got to have something in you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because the resilience you need, just that pure bounce back ability all the time. And it's interesting, I heard you say, obviously originally you'd made that 5-year plan for the pet food business, and then you talked about doing plans with people. So even though, you know, you'd got a plan that completely went out the window because of nature taking its course and telling you otherwise, that, you know, this plan isn't going to happen. You know, but then, of course, in COVID, none of us planned for that. So plans kind of went out the window again. And it's interesting to hear that you still, you know, have you got a business plan? Do you still write it down and do that? Or do you now a bit more flexible because you know that?
I don't have a business plan. I have a life plan.
Okay. And that's your life.
So and it's my life by design. Yeah. So I know, you know, on the back of a fag packet, if you did it like that, I will, by this time next year, I will probably only be working 2 days a week. I will be spending at least 50% of my time abroad, in whether that's in my house in Spain or whether that's elsewhere. I will be running that time that I do spend working. I will be running lovely events for amazing women all over the country, and I can't wait
to be able to make it to one. I know.
Yeah, I will be mentoring.
I can't do it.
Yeah, and I will be mentoring people that really do want to have that work. And I hate work-life balance. It's not about that. It's about crafting a life that they live and they love and that works for them and their family, whatever their family looks like, whether that's, you know, husband and 2.2 children, wife, partner, boyfriend, you on your own with 5 dogs, whatever your life is, it's got to work with that. And you've got...
I like what you said there as well, that it's not about work-life balance. And it's funny because I once had a discussion with... I've got a friend and she was coaching me actually, and she's from the corporate world, and still she was looking to set up on her own and do stuff, but she still very much hasn't made the break from the corporate world. In our session, I was talking about like work-life balance and how, you know, as a business owner, it's very difficult. Like, I've got a very balanced life, pick the kids up from school and things like that. But, you know, I do check my emails at night and I do these things, you know, because that works for me, because it means I can go and get the kids and all these things. And if they're asleep, I really don't care if I'm checking my emails, you know, things like that.
So you're not, that's not work-life balance. That's what you're doing. You are designing your life.
Yes, but she couldn't,
that's what I'm doing.
Like, she couldn't understand that, you know, it's after 6 o'clock, you know, like we just had this, and it was that thing of like, she's always done a job and I've always had a business. And there was just this like gulf really between of how we understood what each other does. Because for me, I was like, well, that's just normal for me running a business. That's what I do. And it was light years apart, and so it was quite funny.
No, it's hilarious. I had that with a friend of mine. I'm in Spain, and she'll come to Spain and stay with me. And I'll say to her, I'm not on holiday, I'm still working, and I'll be working. I said, but I'm going to take today off. I'm going to spend the day with you. I'm going to take the day off. And it'll get to the end of the day, and then I'll be checking my emails. And she said, but I thought you were taking the day off. I said, well, I have. I've spent all day with you. I've taken the day off. I still need to check my emails. So that's my, so that's, do I have a plan? No. And then, of course, you were there when I told you what my big, audacious, hairy goal is, which is that I want every single household in the entire country to have a manual for their life. So that if the, I suppose it's if the big rest, it's, I don't want any family, any man or woman to go through what my family went through when I was in a coma. And is it okay if I just say what that is?
Yes, definitely, because I think it's wonderful.
So what happened was, as I say, the lovely Auntie Pauline moved into my house and had to be Nikki for as long as Nikki needed to be. And she would have stayed. If I'd have died, she would have stayed until my kids went to uni, because she would not have left them. And particularly as their dad was dying as well. But apparently one day there was a knock at the door, and it was my son's best friend's mum. And she said to Pauline, you do know Dan's not had any school dinners this week. And Pauline was like, no, I didn't know that. And Dan, being Dan, didn't want to worry anybody because Daddy was being sick and Mummy wasn't there. And, it was just easier not to eat, because nobody had told Auntie Pauline how to top up his cashless catering. So our school worked on a system that each term you put an amount of money into their account, and the lunches were paid for by your finger. It was a biometric fingerprint, cashless catering. Well, of course, I went into the coma at half term. So I hadn't topped up the cashless catering. I hadn't moved money from, like Colin, again, bless him. He just trusted me with all our money. I should have done more with it, but he trusted me with everything. So I hadn't moved money into our current account. So after about a week of me being in coma, there was he'd go to the hole in the wall, no money there. No idea how to get money in there. I had an online shop at the time. I was doing the Playtex baby products. Friends of mine said they'd help do it. They knew how to download the orders. They didn't know how to top up the franking machine. When we run out of stock, they knew, like Colin said, all the stock's somewhere in Norfolk. Well, where in Norfolk is it? Well, it's in a warehouse. Well, how does she get it?
Find it out. Yeah.
I know, it's her business. It's her business. And it was like everything. And it got me thinking, it's not, we plan for death to some extent. So hopefully everyone's written a will, if nothing else. But we don't plan for, I think we don't think about what would happen if we couldn't be present for our family, whether it is because we've sadly died or whether it's because we've had, I didn't plan to be in hospital for 6 weeks. That was not something I could foresee coming. A friend of mine went into hospital for routine surgery. She should have been in for 24 hours and she ended up 4 weeks in there. Single mum, absent husband, no clue where he was, no family, running her own business, dog, child.
Wow.
I stepped in and looked after dog, child, and then somebody else stepped in as well. But it was more about the fact that I said to Pauline, only about a year ago, I said, would it have been easier for you if you could have walked into my house and gone to the kitchen cupboard and there was a book there and it says what you can do if I'm not here, and really pick up the pieces? And she said it would be amazing. So I've created Picking Up the Pieces, and it's a manual for your life for when the big breast bust hits or when the unthinkable happens. And we'll have sections in it. So, you'll be able to decide what you want to take out of it. So rather than just create a one-size-fits-all, which it isn't going to be, because every single, if I go down my street, every single family is completely different. There's a completely different makeup. So some people may not have, like I say, some people may not have children, but they may have 5 dogs.
Yeah.
And if you're not there, so it's down to what dog food do they have? Are they on any medication? Yeah. Who walks them? Who's their carers? And even down to things like not so much when I was ill, because Dan was a bit older, but when Dan was 3, I would put things like, if I was writing that manual now, I would say, doesn't like wearing socks with seams. You have to cut all the labels out of his clothes, and he likes his food put on the plate in sections, otherwise he won't eat them. It's like, if you've got a child that's got even slightly any neurodiversity or special needs, that needs to be documented somewhere, so that if somebody's walking into your life, they know who their school is, who the school. Yeah, it's just everything, and it sounds like a momentous thing to do, and it will take you a weekend to get all that information together, but then it's done, and then you just update it.
Calm though when you've done it.
Yeah,
going to be amazing. I know, like when I had a friend at work who got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it made me question my mortality, and I worked for myself, obviously, and I suddenly thought, oh my God, I'm not going to have critical illness cover and things like that, and I put that in place some years ago, and the sense of calm that brought about, that all of that was, not to be needed to worry about anymore, was brilliant. And I think something like what you're creating, that would just do that to a whole extra level, wouldn't it? Of just that, okay.
And it goes a bit further, because we've done one for your personal life, but we've also created one for solo entrepreneurs, which is obviously, really if I was to fall over tomorrow, who would know who my clients were?
Yeah.
Who would know about my social accounts? Who would know about my meetings that were, where is all that information held? Where is that kept? How do you get that? If it's all on my laptop, what's the password to my laptop? I mean, mine's my finger on mine, but there is a password as well. Where do you store that? Who is your trusted, it's just things like a lot of the stuff you don't want to write down. You might want to store it digitally somewhere, but somebody needs to know how to access this information. Yeah. So and what's happened is, the only reason it's not come out sooner was because I've kind of created a monster. No, I keep thinking about other things, like, I was talking to a friend last week. She said, I've got to go up to Peterborough because mum's carers. I'm like, oh my God, do you care for someone? Are you responsible for somebody's care?
Yeah.
When I fell over, luckily I wasn't caring for anyone, but had I been responsible for someone's care, then no one would have known what I do.
And the thing is, it's like with the rise in email, we don't get letters from people either. We don't get letters from the bank, or, these things that would come and make you think, oh, there might be some money there that is theirs and we need to find it. You don't get anymore.
So it is picking up the pieces, a manual for my life if the unthinkable happens, and whatever the unthinkable is, whether it's a 3-week unthinkable, a 6-month unthinkable, or a end of life unthinkable.
Well, one thing, when you do eventually stop adding to it and release it so that we can have it, please send me the link and I'll put it in the footer for this episode, because I think you really just see the value in it. And I think especially because obviously a lot of people that are going to be listening to this are people that have got small businesses, they are solo entrepreneurs, or they're thinking of doing it. I think, especially once they've started, you put your life blooming work into these businesses and stuff, and it's just horrible to think that it would just stop one day. With people being disappointed, not knowing what was going on and where you'd gone, that people could owe you money that might not come in, and it's just.
And or even if it's like you're temporarily incapacitated. So my friend had an online shop selling clothes, and the orders were still coming in. She was in intensive care. The orders were still coming in. Thankfully, we knew how to download those orders and get them out. So we weren't letting any of her clients down. And thankfully, one of us knew how to put a temporarily closed on the website for a couple of weeks. But we didn't really want to close it for very long, because that was her income.
Yeah.
And you needed to keep the income coming in.
I mean, so grateful to you guys that you were in that position where you understood what was going on. Some people go into business, and until they join these networks and meet people, which is really important, and you should please definitely do it, But before they do that, some people's like their parents don't even really understand what they do. Sometimes their partners don't, and their friends certainly wouldn't. So they're in a really difficult position.
Yeah. So I think, just to summarize, being an entrepreneur, and certainly my journey has been interesting, to say the least. I mean, it's been a massive roller coaster. I have had huge success and failure. I had a couple of things that didn't quite work out, and we have to go through that to learn. I've learned that everything has to be done with real thought. It's very easy to get sucked into shiny object syndrome. It's very easy to go me, and just get caught up on a wave of things. I think it's really important I love that. There was that book, I can't remember who wrote it now, but Will It Make My Boat Go Faster? And it's whatever you do, when you're thinking of buying a course, joining a membership, doing something, bit of CPD, always ask your question, is it going to make my boat go faster? Is it going to bring something more to my life or my business? Or am I just doing it because my friend's doing it? Because I can't tell you how many things I used to do. My friend would say, oh, should we go and do this course? And yeah, I'll do that. And, I did a poll recently of people, and it's like, how many courses have you bought that you've never even finished? And how much money is
my percentage?
Well, that's a very high percentage. But what was the very sobering thought is, how much money have you spent on those courses? And what would you have done with that money if you hadn't spent it? Would you have spent it in your business? Or would you maybe spent it on yourself and taking yourself off for a lovely spa day or something else? Mm. And so it's just about being a bit more mindful and a bit more intentional. And then that comes back to the life by design, living your life with purpose and planning things. And it can sound really boring, but it's not. It's really empowering, because you end up with more hours in the day, you end up spending less money, you end up creating more money, and you end up spending less time doing it.
But the thing is, it makes a difference every day to your life, doesn't it? It isn't about like a one-time thing, and it is improving your life on wherever you're at every day. And some of it, like you say, it's not even difficult. It's quite simple. It's just having the thought to really think it through as to what you want from your life, really. What is the thing that you wish you'd known earlier or been told earlier?
In business?
Yeah.
I think the thing I wish I'd been told earlier is I probably didn't realise the value of networking early on.
Okay.
Hang on.
I could agree with that, because my manufacturing business is in quite a niche, and I've never really, when I'd done that for years before doing any networking, because you didn't, like, anyone and no one could need it, so
exactly.
I agree with that.
I think networking, but I would then caveat that by saying I've been to loads of networks and I've sat there and I thought, why the hell am I here? I've got nothing in common with you. I don't know what, this is like 2 hours of my life I'm never going to get back again. So I think it's really
important. Had that thought in our mind.
Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. But some people just keep going because they think it's going to get better. It's not. If that is not your vibe, that is not going to get better. So you have to seek out those networks or groups or whatever that are going to work best for you. So with my smarter networking, the reason I've called it smarter networking is because you're actually thinking about it before you do it. And it's specifically for solo entrepreneurs. And it's specifically for solo entrepreneurs in a certain area. And it's not just networking, because nobody wants to stand up and do a 60-second elevator pitch anymore. It's a hybrid of mastermind and networking. So you're then sharing your experiences. They're the kind of networks that really work. I'm not saying that when you go and rock up and do your 60-second elevator pitch and you pass business cards around and referrals, they're great and they work really well for trades and business to business. But I think for solo entrepreneurs who maybe need a little bit more, you want a network where you can sit down and you can literally say to the 10 or 12, keep it small, 12 people around the table, I've had a really, really rough month. And actually, I've got this customer who is really grinding my gears, and I just don't know what to do. And the other 12 will pitch in and go, well, actually, I've had that, or have you tried this? Or I've got a member of staff and this, that, and the other, or I'm thinking of promoting with somebody, but I'm just not. And it's that kind of thing, because when you're a solo entrepreneur, you don't have the benefit of loads of other people in the business that you can talk these things through with.
That's why you do it.
You don't have them,
isn't it?
Whereas if you're in a network that is of similar people at a similar stage in their business, where, you know, they're still quite small, they haven't got necessarily a huge team around them, but they're beginning to evolve. Choose that network, because those people will give you back something. You will get something out of it. Don't rock up to one that's cost you £5 and you're going to do a 60-second elevator pitch and hope it's going to be okay. So I think
you say that, actually, because we met at a mastermind and we sat at a table and we split into two groups, because obviously there was quite a few people there. And hearing you responding to people and giving your experience, I learned more about you on that day than if you'd just done like, oh, your little elevator pitch and things like that, that made me think, yeah, I can see why she's called Straight Talking Strategist. She knows what she's talking about. I like her ethos. And we connected from that time. And yeah, you wouldn't have got that in the same way in a general network.
So I think, you know, the one thing I would say is networking is very, very important. It will pay you back in spades, but be intentional with it. Be very intentional with it. And I would also say go deep, not wide.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic.
You know,
people. Thank you.
Go deep, not wide. That would be my thing.
We're obviously coming to the end of our session now. And one of the things that I want to do going ahead is leave people on something that's kind of actionable for them, for things to go ahead. And I think something that would be useful is to recommend a business book that could help people, because I'm all about continuing learning forever and not necessarily through buying courses. So have you got, I know you did mention a book a minute ago, but have you got a
so there is one book, and I mean, some people will love it, some people won't hate it. Will hate it. It's very Marmite, but I just like the thought of it, and it's actually, and I've forgotten the author. I wish I'd known you were going to tell me this beforehand. It's the 4-Hour Work Week.
Okay, everyone knows that one. I'm trying to think of it.
I love the 4-Hour Work Week, because you know,
Google the 4-Hour Work Week. It's gonna...
yeah, and it you know, it's just, it just makes sense that everything's possible. And yeah, I can see myself going, like he did, going to South America and learning the Argentinian tango just because he had the time to do it. You know, I can see myself
working 4 hours. I think it's in my Audible library, and I don't think I've listened to it yet, because I think I've always kind of gone, 4 hours is quite ambitious, you know. I'd be happy.
I'm hedging for it. That's on my radar in a couple of years' time. I'd love to do a 4-hour work week. But yeah, so that
we might be sat chatting about it and go, oh, I'm down to 6 now. And you'll say, well, I'm at 4.
Hopefully in 2 years, I'll be going, maybe 1.5. No, I don't think I'll ever stop working, but I think I would just do it.
I think that's an interesting thing with retiring, because my husband's a financial advisor. So we have these sort of really interesting conversations all the time, because that's what we do in life. But he, you know, he's not that bothered about ever kind of retiring, really. And it is that interesting thing that if you're doing something you love at an amount that you're happy with, you don't need to, do you? You know, it's not like you're trying to escape from a 40-hour week standard work week where you're working for someone else, and, you know, it's just different.
I think you know, it's people have different ideas about things. I've got a very good friend. He's 72 now. His son works in his business, but he still dabbles 3 or 4 hours a week because it keeps him sharp. It keeps him interesting. You know, he said, I can think of nothing worse than just standing around doing my garden. But for other people, that's what they want to do. You know, some people just want to spend, you know, and I think it's horses for courses, isn't it? But, you know, certainly for us now, we are working much, much longer. We're not retiring quite as early because we can't. Yeah. And so therefore, we should be doing something we love. And if you wake up in the morning, and this is my thing I'd leave you with, if you wake up in the morning and you're not thinking, this day is going to bring me joy. Or, you look at your client list and you're thinking, oh, it's that person. And you're dreading having that meeting with that person for whatever reason. Then maybe you need to think about what you're doing.
Yeah. Or certainly who you're doing it with.
Or who you're doing it with. Yeah. Be a bit more, pre-qualify the people a bit more. Make sure they are your kind of person, because, an hour is a long time when you don't when you're not happy with the vibe that's going on. So
if you do a day VIP, then that's quite awful.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and for the first episode.
Thank you so much.
I'll include all of your links below so people can find out who you are and follow you, because obviously you are a person worth following. And if you can send me the link for the book when that will, I'll put that in there, because guys, you need to look at this. It will make your life feel much calmer. So yeah, see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Many Hats of Business, the podcast. Your support means a lot to me. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your business friends, as they may find it useful too. If you hit the follow button, you'll be first to know when a new episode lands. See you next time.